On the agenda tonight, we're jumping into part 3 of our conversation with Steve Stevens from Billy Idol. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to the third and final video in the series that I'm releasing with Steve Stevens on the channel. We've already covered the Top Gun theme and his approach to playing that, as well as his approach in general, guitar technique, advice for players. In this video, we will have the guitars out because we're going to be just exploring concepts of playing, just continuing on really from where we left it from that previous video, but now with practical examples. So let's jump back into it.
Yeah.
But it's consciously sometimes taking out is as important as putting in.
Sure, absolutely. The only thing I'll mention gear-wise with that was that it was a Charvel guitar that I had a Floyd Rose on it, and it was really important that the notes sustained. I was using a Marshall Plexi, and anyone that knows those amps, they're not super high gain. They're beautiful tone machines, but not super high gain. So I put in a one of those Boss sustainer pedals, a compressor, Boss compressor, and so this would have been 1986. So it's probably one of the little blue guys. So that I didn't want to add distortion because I like the tone of the amp, but I didn't want sustain on it. So that helped. Especially, anytime you're really dependent on, just playing a melody, you want those notes to sustain. So basically, yeah, it's in C. So as I mentioned, I played it really simply for the opening. Add a little bit, and then so at the end of the whole phrase, then I added a little bit of wiggle to it, and then as I played down after it, I think. I altered the melody to go against the track. I didn't want to do that at the beginning, but kept it really straight to go with the strings. Right? So I knew a way to end it is really triumphant, and take it down an octave. And I remember Howe saying, "Oh, that's like Wagner or something," because it's really like very, and then it's really a definitive statement. You're ending on a,
Yeah, it's like your full stop or period, as you say over in the USA.
Yeah, you're putting an exclamation point on it.
Yeah.
And then I remember at the end, we. So maybe I think there might have been a higher octave added, maybe as an overdub to support, as we're building, because we're constantly, as the track is going down, we're building this thing. So and what was strange to me is that the chord transformation went from C. I think it went, which for me was very strange. And I remember even thinking, Harold, that's, very strange interval. But he's such a trained classical musician that in the end, although when you look at it on paper, the relationship between the two key changes is certainly not what we would do in rock and roll, but in the context of the film, it really builds tension. It really works.
But even when you're playing there, just the tiny details of a little slide in to what you're playing, starting straight, then sliding in, and a little slide up, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Those are the tiny details that obviously somebody listening to it that doesn't play guitar won't appreciate. The sprinkling of other technique that's thrown in there to make it interesting. But I mean, I mean, that solo is a great example of everything that you said earlier about just dotting things in, and kind of later on in the solo when you've got and you're kind of getting into the tapping. Again, it's just taking a totally different tool out of that toolbox.
Yeah, for the solo, I think. I mean, those go. That's right in C major. And then there's the 5 against 4. And once again, now here's the funny thing, is the Steve Howe influence. Okay, and one of the things I loved about them was in Heart of the Sunrise. Right? So he's just doing the octaves, and I always thought that's such a cool way, no matter what the notes are, to build the solo. So I apply that in a lot of... It's basically that same idea. I think I varied the rhythm. A little bit there, and then basically it's just it's a C major shape. Those are all, and once again, those are things that I probably had in my back pocket at the time, and thought, I can, I wasn't having to like, oh hell, what am I going to do now? I already had these little phrases, and I rearranged the phrases depending on what the solo is or whatever. Similar thing in Rebel Yell. So same idea. 3 octaves. Play the same pattern. You're giving people something they can really relate to, they can remember. Billy always called that the cavalry. He says it reminds him of like being on a horse. And then I just take it up an octave, take it up another octave. Okay, I've established that. Now I'm on to the next pattern or whatever that's going to be your, so that's a cool thing. If for guitar players, if you've got a cool little pattern that you do, throw it into different octaves, vary it, however. Because it's memorable. I think octaves are often overlooked, close to the edge. It's just octaves. It's so stupid. But what's happening against it musically, Chris Squire's moving bass against that creates this tension. Jimmy Page also did that a lot with octaves and things like that. I think and it's just your ear goes, oh, I've heard the first bit of the phrase. Oh, I know this. It's an octave up. Oh, okay, I know this. It's another octave up. I know this, but it's building tension. So it's a cool valuable tool, I think.
Yeah, and using octaves just in general, if you've, say for example, you're there, and you've got your, you can kind of start to pick out little hooks and melodies that you've no longer got that restriction of having to reference your chord all the time. Even go kind of.
Right, exactly.
And you can start to kind of dig around with that rhythm a bit. So, I mean, like you've said, octaves, I think, are definitely underappreciated. And you will find, a lot of bands, I mean, Green Day, for example, one of those bands that use that really well.
Absolutely.
They won't have a kind of solo in there that's really technical, but it'll have melody with just an octave.
I think it's, I mean, I've been really blessed with working with so many great singers. And one of the things that I noticed is a lot of time, and it's the same concept, a lot of times when they're establishing their first verse, and it doesn't matter who the singer is, from Billy Idol, David Coverdale, they'll sing that first verse at a certain octave. And then the second verse, they'll take it up an octave and give it their higher, in Still of the Night. If people listen to that, in the Still of the Night, Wolf out. And then later on, he's singing it up an octave, and he's going for it. And it creates this incredible tension, and it moves the song forward. Guitar players can definitely, listen to your favorite singers, and just go, what are they doing? And just, even if you write it down, you don't have to write down what the notes are or anything. Just go, in the first verse he sang this, and then in the second verse maybe it wasn't an octave, but he sang it a fifth above, or he stressed whatever it was, major or minor, stressed the major or it stressed the minor. Take those concepts, apply them to the guitar, and they're really useful. I always tell people, don't get discouraged by mistakes or things that aren't successful, because those mistakes and things that go wrong are what you learn to not do the next time. So you eliminate those mistakes, and you without those mistakes, you'd constantly be doing the wrong thing. So those are really important. Hitting wrong notes are just as important than hitting the perfect note.
I sometimes say to people that might be in bands, might be performing live, that the more you play live, obviously the better, but probably for the reason that when I started playing in venues, you realise that it's totally different to your rehearsal room, where it's a controlled environment. When you go and play live, something can happen that will, if you're not ready for it or you're not well versed in playing live, it will throw you off, and you might totally forget what you're doing on the guitar or vocally. So playing live, getting out there, don't worry if you make mistakes, because I see playing live for a lot of people as making playing live and everything that happens live subconscious, in exactly the same way that you practice your techniques and they become subconscious. So
absolutely,
the more you play, the more random stuff will happen, but all of that just gets logged away, and you don't have to worry about ever getting put off, because you've seen everything. So now you can just kind of get on with playing.
And it is another really simple thing, the simple fact that you're standing there with the guitar, as opposed to sitting comfortable in your bedroom, your little studio setup or whatever, and you're comfortable there. Then you get on stage, and stuff is happening, and your singer, might bump you or something, or whatever. It's different. It's much harder to play guitar sitting up than it is sitting down. So it's really good. I always tell guitar players, one of the things I say, stand up when you're home. Give it an hour. Practice all your stuff, but then put your strap on and play for an hour, and do those same things. You'll find it's a lot more difficult. Unless the guitar's up here, which doesn't look that cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's that balance between playability and image. How low can I get the guitar, but still play the way that I can play?
Yeah, and you have to you have to gauge where. It's so silly, but how low or how high. I mean, Tom Morello wears his guitar high, and it looks great.
Yeah.
For a lot of rock guys, you don't want it down Jimmy Page. I couldn't play like that, but you kind of have to gauge. You have to kind of go, where am I comfortable? Am I willing to sacrifice a little bit of dexterity to have it a little bit lower? And I find that in the course of a Billy Idol show, 75% of my stuff is rhythm playing. And I'm not great at rhythm when it's too high. It's got to be a little bit lower, where the fulcrum of my, my chords are ringing and I'm hitting the strings the right way, and that that's you have to find that happy medium, and that's that's an important. I know it's a very basic thing, but find the spot that you're most comfortable.
Somebody that I mentioned quite a lot on the channel when talking about getting the guitar into a particular position. And Slash is one of those that when he's playing a particular line that he wants a little bit more access to his fretboard, he'll pop the guitar up and have his foot on the fold back, and it looks cool. Yeah. But then you think about, well, technically, if he's stretching, it's like, oh, maybe he needs to do that to get his finger to that point, because he's not quite making it. So all these little
it's actually brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant that he's thought that through. Okay, when I want to really have the dexterity stuff, I'll use the monitor and I'll put it up on my
exactly, because
and it's become a stylistic thing now. It's great.
Yeah, nobody is going to be suspicious of that at all, because they think, oh wow, that looks cool. And it's got that double function of actually being
that's right.
Easy to stretch. So it's a cool thing to look out for. Some of the Top Gun, not to kind of go back too much, but some of that, when you're doing the kind of and you've got kind of dive bombs in there and kind of the those kind of things that are those spontaneous, almost Van Halen-esque throwaway bits of technique that have so much expression in there, but are so cool. And even just that of kind of deciding on that third bend to throw that pinched harmonic in there, something that, going back to making your technique subconscious, when you feel it, you can then produce it in that split second.
Yeah, I'm certainly not known for pinch harmonics much, but in the case of that one, I think I was just digging in, and it's just like you're building the intensity, and if you dig in with your pick and you're building the harmonic is going to come out, the pinch thing or something. So there's certainly no pinch harmonics on Billy Idol stuff. It's just not a technique that we utilized. We were really like, I was very cognizant of having the rhythms keep an element of punk rock in them. Especially living in New York, and a lot of the kind of early punk rock guitar players, like maybe Johnny Thunders or the Ramones or things like that. Those kind of like aggressive, and obviously the Sex Pistols. I was aware that I had to honor that element of Billy Idol because, he was in a punk rock band, had done 3 records with them, and I had to marry that part of his career to him moving to America and bringing in more rock and roll elements as well. So it was and at times it didn't always work. There's a lot of things that ended up, on the cutting room floor or whatever, that we just went, nah, it's just not Billy Idol. It doesn't sound right for Billy Idol. But once you'd hear his vocal, I took my cues mostly from his vocal. If it sounded right against his voice, I went, that's, how can you deny that? But many times I came up with the most incredible guitar part, and against the vocal, it's just too much. It was just like, it was heartbreaking. But hey, the bottom line is it doesn't work. So, our producer Keith Forsey would always say, I'd come up with something that would be really cool or whatever, and it didn't work. He'd go, well, save it for your own record. Okay.
It's that very important point of complementing the overall sound rather than competing with, because those two things are going to sound totally different, and having that overall appreciation of the sound of the whole band, but the sound of the song, like playing something that's going to complement the song rather than, this is my chance just to show off this thing that I've kind of just learned to do, which like you say, is very difficult sometimes.
Here's an important thing for guitar players, and this certainly something I learned from listening to Led Zeppelin and Rebel Yell is a great example of that. It's basically four chords. So it's B minor, right? And the chorus is the same chord structure as the verse. So the bass is playing B to A to G, E, with passing. Now, as a guitar player, if I would have just gone, and a lot of guitar players do that. They listen to what the bass is doing and they follow those chords. But what I realize is to expand upon it, and thank you, Jimmy Page, I played an independent part. So, okay, there I'm playing the B, and then here, so I wanted to keep F sharp as the highest note in every chord. So, right? So, which is D major, and then, which is G major 7th, and then I join the bass here. So I'm not playing the notes, the roots of the bass, so it's... So the whole thing becomes much larger. You're expanding, let the bass state the root note. Okay, he's got that covered. There's a bit of a keyboard pad. They're going to cover that. Now I'm free to do this stagnant, what I say is the soprano note. It creates such good tension because it's so much more interesting to me to constantly, it's like a chime. It's like the church bell in there. That's what I was, kind of going for. So it's, I stress to guitar players, find something, forget about what the bass player is doing. Don't worry about it. He's going to cover, if he's doing his job, he's going to cover the chord changes. You don't have to be so worried about that. You can come up with chords and things, and I think obviously all the greats do that. They come up with these guitar parts that are independent, rhythmatically, harmonically, and they stand on their own, but it widens the music.
That rhythm part, especially in that verse, you've got Billy's voice is musically sitting between bass and guitar, and especially when he's in that lower octave before he then he gets up into that chorus. So you're maximizing all the frequency you can to get a nice full sound, but independently rather than, if you're just hitting those root notes. The other thing is the pulsing rhythm that you're placing with all of those downstrokes. It's just, you're not just going straight forward the whole time. It's getting that to pop.
We were definitely, when it came to those stagnant, stabby guitar rhythm parts, we were influenced by Suicide, and there's a song called Ghost Rider. People want to go, I'm sure it's on YouTube, Suicide, YouTube. Alan Vega was a singer, and he was also a, baritone, and we go, man, Marty Rev, keyboard player's doing this, dot, 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 these kind of stagnant things against these, and the bass would move against it, and he kind of, and keyboard players would do that, Ray Manzarek in the Doors, Keith Emerson, they'd have these suspense parts against moving bass thing, and I kind of, it was a very mindful application of it to put it in the second verse of White Wedding. Like, it wasn't a big featured thing, but it became, when it came time to do the follow-up record, I based a lot of my guitar parts on that style. I went, we both went, kind of a light bulb went off. Well, that's a cool thing. That's part of the Billy Idol sound, Didn't sound like anything else. It was unique to us. So a lot of what I did ended up being that way. I still apply that concept to what I do.
Thank you so much for your time today, Steve. It is massively appreciated. And
I think, and I love your channel. I think what you do is, it's never about your ego, because you want to share your love of the instrument with other people, and you know, it's obvious that you're a teacher. So you're you know, I mean, man, without some of the guitar teachers that I had, you know, I had a great flamenco teacher, and then my main guitar teacher, and you know, that really comes through, that your love of the instrument is something you want to share, and that, you know, that's, you know, something I try and do as well. Is there's no secrets here. It's all, you know, hey, take this and use it, because, you know, it's cool and it's fun to discover stuff.
So another huge thank you to Steve for joining me on the channel tonight. If you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!